All right, so your refresh rate is the number of times the monitor updates with new images each second. It's pretty interesting, right? It's pretty dope how um, computers work or how they process images to create moving objects, right? It's what I call the digital the digital flipbook, right? It's like a digital flipbook. And on the subject of refresh rates, because something else we're going to talk about in this live stream, and that's G-Sync, FreeSync, and just overall adaptive sync in general, and how it works and how it goes hand in hand with your refresh rate, why it's important. So, refresh rate, number of times the monitor updates with a new image each second. Did you know that essentially monitors, they're like, or video games, they're a digital flipbook, right? I mean, all it is a whole bunch of images displaying fast. Rather, if you have a 60 hertz monitor, let's use Bad Habits monitor for an example. If you have a 60 hertz monitor, that means images are fanatically being displayed on your screen 60 times per second. You can scale that all the way up to 144, 100 or 240 times each second. Visual professions like content creation and game development, high refresh rates are invaluable. They are crucial. This is why most ultra wide monitors, especially now, are coming in at a minimum of at least 100 hertz. I got mine about 3 years ago, and that's exactly what the refresh rate is on my monitor. It's at 100 hertz refresh rate. It works for me because I don't play games competitively, but even as I'm playing casually, it does give me a slight benefit, at least from what I can tell anyway, from in my opinion. But yeah, video games, essentially what I call the digital flipbook, okay, or the interactive digital flipbook. You see a solid visual on the screen, but what's actually happening is the screen is changing 60 times a second, 144 times a second, 240 times a second. Um, it's like magic in my opinion. This is why I said computers within themselves are almost machines, because they have that job of displaying that image constantly. And the more image it's able to display, the smoother the gameplay. We're going to talk about that more, right? We're going to talk about that more. Actually, you know what? Let's dive into that subject a little deeper, starting with refresh rate, right? Again, arguably the reason why we're all here and why it is important to gamers, especially for competitive gamers, whether you play Fortnite, CS:GO, Warzone, right? Because like Triceon mentioned earlier in this live stream, how more refresh rates, a higher refresh rate can make you more competitive, and it's true because it gives you the opportunity to react and respond to your enemy before they're able to, only because your system has refreshed much faster than they're able to. It's in my opinion why console gamers have a slight competitive edge over console gamers when we have unlocked frame rates. But it can still feel smoother to play at a higher frame rate than what your monitor or display can output because of input lag with your mouse will be reduced. And input lag is something we're going to talk about. And this is why I say you want to try to achieve an average FPS that exceeds your monitor. But as you can see here in our 60 hertz, 144 hertz, and 244 hertz example, with the soldier coming from behind the wall, with 240 hertz, you're able to the 240 hertz panel has a slight advantage. Why? Because you're seeing that enemy faster, quicker. The display is refreshing at a higher rate. We're going to talk about why that is in terms of how playing it could feel smoother to play at a higher frame rate than what your monitor can display. Input lag and latency being two of the biggest reasons why. It's important to note that if you're playing beyond your monitor's refresh rate, you can introduce things like screen tearing and screen tearing and ghosting, just a few other things. I'll tell you what, let's talk about it, because with screen tearing is what your monitor is rendering frames, or your hardware is rendering frames faster than your monitor can display them. If you ever experience screen tearing, you know how it can take you out of the experience of the game, right? Like it's not very good. It's just not a very good experience, right? And I have another example here. You can see too on a 240 hertz display versus a 144 hertz display versus a 60 hertz display, right? The 240 hertz display has lower latency. The frames, the images are refreshing faster, 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 and it's enabling you to respond quicker, right? This is why a high refresh rate can make you more competitive. Now, response time also plays a role in refresh rates, right? What is response time? Because response time is another area of confusion I see amongst the community. Now, response time is essentially the time it takes for a pixel to change colors, right? So you have how many images, you have your refresh rate, which is going to this how many images can be displayed per second, but then you have your response time is how long it takes for those pixels to change colors. Now, a good rule of thumb, lower number versus a higher number reflects a faster change or higher performance. This is what you want because this also plays a role in latency. That matters for fast-paced visuals, right? Or, fast-paced visuals matters for competitive gaming. Higher refresh rates and faster pixel response times also dramatically reduce ghosting. Uh, I recommend 1 millisecond response time monitors. A few that actually picked out for this live stream that we're going to kind of slowly glance over and talk about. But when slower tech is used in high-paced action sequences, there may be trailing images, and that is essentially ghosting, right? Like, it's better to show an example, but if you're an experienced gamer and you've played on high-end hardware and maybe like a lower-end hardware monitor, you've likely experienced this is when your visuals get a little blurry and you kind of see this ghosting like effect with your character or your avatar. It can really take you out of the experience when you're gaming. This is why response time is important. Having a monitor with a low response time and a high refresh rate is a good area to start. Monitor with a high refresh rate, low response time.